All right, okay, ready?
I am here. I was born ready. Let's do this.
Let's do this thing. Okay, so I have 2 points to follow up from the previous episode.
Okay.
First thing is, I need to correct my pronunciation of Kales. I kept saying Kales. It should be Kales.
This is the guy from the Klingon opera.
This is the guy.
Sort of messianic hero figure.
Yeah, exactly.
Kalas.
And so that's number one. Number two is we had a comment on the subreddit saying that we should have mentioned Hangul, the Korean writing system.
Right.
As a writing system that was invented essentially by one dude.
Oh, okay. So this is what we were saying, that they have all evolved and no one just wakes up and creates a script. That
Exactly.
Actually, Hangul was pretty much done that way.
Yeah, by a guy called Sejong the Great.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, if you invent a whole writing system, I think that qualifies for the great.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And qualifies definitely for a mention on a podcast, you know?
Oh, yeah, well, a minimum.
And so also the commenter linked to a video all about the Korean writing system. I'll throw this link in the show notes. It's by a guy called Zidnaf.
Okay.
Who is a really good YouTuber. He's a small YouTuber who does linguistics videos. He's really good. You should check him out. But can I please implore the internet to stop sending me messages to check this guy out? Because I cannot tell you how many, I can't even begin to describe how many comments I've received saying, oh, you should really check out Zidnaf. I know, guys. I know. It's okay. I've got this, all right? Because I've been subbed with him. I remember, I think I subbed up to him when he had under 1,000 subscribers.
Right.
And he's at something like 10,000 now. So I've been with him from the start. So
what you're saying is you were into his Zidnaf before he was cool?
Yeah, man.
Hipster!
I know, right? But seriously, no more messages. Really, it's fine. It's cool. I'll put a link to his channel. Everyone check him out. He's awesome.
Fair enough.
Okay, so do you have any points to follow on from the previous episode there, Bill?
Yeah, so we were talking to the user Lupier on the Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about black metal and how that connects to world building. Particularly, there's a band, Immortal, who actually recently disbanded, which is terribly, terribly sad.
Oh, poor Immortal.
Yeah. Immortal are quite interesting in that all of their stuff is based in this sort of frozen northern realm of mysticism and occultism and things.
Okay.
And it comes up a lot in their lyrics. It builds on the sort of black metal trope of the frozen wastelands of Norway kind of thing.
Okay.
So they have a realm called Blaskir, or Blasiach, I think it is.
Okay.
And it comes up a lot in their lyrics anyway. And they craft stories and this whole mythos around themselves and their involvement here. And that's not entirely uncommon in black metal, I guess. And Lupier was saying that he would find black metal to be a big inspiration for him in terms of world building. And when he listens to this music, he sees these frozen wastelands and it inspires him to be creative. Which reinforces the point that you can take inspiration from anything, anything at all can be the creative impetus.
Definitely. That's very true. Ties us into episode 1, the initial pilot of this.
Episode 0.
Episode 0, yes. Oh, God. I regret calling episode 1 episode 0. But yes, that first episode. Yeah, you can find inspiration in just about anything.
Yeah. And a thing I'd like to talk about is actually something going slightly the other way. Because obviously world building comes up in things like opera. If you're creating sort of a fantastical story, then world building is going to be an element of that. How you portray the setting that your opera is set in. But on the topic of black metal, there's a really interesting English black metal band called Bal Sagoth.
Okay.
Who I told Lupier that I would talk about someone on the podcast, but I didn't reveal who. But anyway, this is them. Bal Sagoth. They're from somewhere in Yorkshire, I believe.
Stupid question, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Is York in Yorkshire?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so you were in Yorkshire, so this is from your adopted home.
I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think they might be from, like, Sheffield or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, go for it.
I could be completely wrong. But they have about 6 albums, and they've been described as black metal meets H.P. Lovecraft meets Star Wars.
Wow.
Yeah. Across their 6 albums, across each of their 6 albums, they have a number of continuing storylines or continuing settings with recurring characters and stuff. So the first album I got was their final album. It came out about 10 years ago. And it's a story about a war between an empire and sort of other mystical tribes and things. And the lyrics booklet that came with the CD actually has a map of their setting in it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So obviously, Teenage Bill discovering this, it was metal and it was fantasy world building. I was immediately very, very taken.
Brilliant.
So that's one of their stories about this imperial war that lasts across several of their albums. They've another one about an archaeologist, a sort of a Victorian era archaeologist called Caleb Blackthorne, I think, who travels around the world unearthing Egyptian ruins and Sumerian ruins and discovers eldritch horrors from beyond time, a very H.P. Lovecraft kind of thing.
Wow.
So they have these running themes and this sort of consistent world building, and it's not told chronologically or anything. All the different elements of the story and the different periods of the story are split up kind of more or less at random between their various albums. It's really worth checking out. I mean, if you're into metal and if you're listening to this podcast, so you're into world building and stuff, it's definitely worth a look. And for a while, the singer, Byron, was the only metal singer who had official sponsorship from an armor company.
Oh, this sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, Byron is the vocalist's name, and they would perform wearing armor and with maces and things sometimes.
Oh, proper legit armor, like proper forged stuff.
Well, I think some of it might have been leather armor, maybe, but yeah, perhaps mail.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
huh. That's really cool.
There's a band actually called the Meads of Asphodel who don't perform live because they play in armor.
Why would you do that? Why not just not wear the armor to play live?
Well, there are some bands that like in metal and things that aren't live projects, that are studio projects. Is it Anan Lafrak does that, I think? They very, very rarely play live, and they initially formed with the intention of only being a studio band.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds really hindering. You're cutting out huge revenue and huge opportunity to spread your music through live shows.
Touring is very expensive, though.
Yeah, but do you not make a ton of money on merchandise and exposure and things like that?
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, so do you think touring is like a necessary evil for bands?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't realise that at all. I thought that's
Sometimes.
where you make the big bucks, like.
It can be, but, I mean, basically all of it is difficult starting out. And these guys were all in other bands anyway, I think. So they had the expertise and they had the access to studios and things. So they were like, look, we already do a lot of touring. We want to make music together. Let's not bother touring it. Let's just record it. And
are these people in the minority that are just studio bands, or is this a...
Oh, yeah, no, it would be a minority, but it does exist.
Okay. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
There we go.
There we go. Learn something new every day. My thoughts to this world building and black metal thing. I don't really like black metal. I don't dislike it. I just never really got into it. It just doesn't engage with me as much as it does with you. With the world building thing in it, can it isolate new consumers of the music? Like, if you just stumble across their music and it's referencing all of these places and characters and things like that, can that be isolating?
What do you mean by isolating?
As in, people don't engage with it, they don't get it, because it's like, well, who is Kalis? I don't know who they're singing about. What's this about?
Possibly, although I would expect not, because first of all, it can be hard to figure out what the lyrics in black metal are anyway.
That's a valid point, yeah.
And they often do tend to be quite obscure when you do know them. Black metal often tends to reference mythology and things, which a lot of people don't know about.
Okay.
I guess it's possible, but I'd be surprised if that was a huge influence, or if that was a huge result of this approach.
See, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because with the way music is consumed, like, you said about the maps.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get a map with downloading it off iTunes,
Yeah.
So you all from the start, you don't get all the detail.
Right.
So for me, I don't know. I think I'd be wondering, well, what's going on. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I mean, the work stands on its own merits. Like, it's really good of the kind of black metal that it is. That's kind of like slightly symphonic, synthy black metal. It does that well.
Okay, so they're not leaning on the creation of this world to sell their stuff in a way. Like, it is decent
No,
music.
no, not at all. Like it stands on its musical merits, and it has this added element to it. Like if you had a film that had really compelling and had a lot of backstory to it, you wouldn't need necessarily to know all the backstory to enjoy the film, but you could go and then find it out or whatever.
That's a very good analogy, actually. That's a very, very good analogy. Yeah, that's true. And I think maybe I would be compelled to go look for the backstory if I heard something that musically engaged me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Right, what's next on the item of follow-up there?
So we talk about these emails.
Yes, let's talk about some emails. So we received emails, which came as a great shock to me.
I was delighted.
You were delighted because they're all directed at you.
Hold on, they're both. Let's not overstate the case here.
Bill, no, we have to sell it, right? We have to sell this. Because, like, if someone stumbles across us, we want to give the impression that millions upon millions of people are emailing us on a monthly basis. No, well, because I said, I put out a call for people to email Bill, and people answered my call. And I want to thank people for that. That's really cool. That's a genuine thanks for getting in touch. It's really cool to have, to be able to talk about how people view our stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's really great to be able to engage with the audience this way. So thanks very much, guys.
Definitely. Do you want to start off talking about Ari Lev's email, perhaps?
Yeah. Okay, so this is from the very first episode where I was talking about Gallerian.
Yes. And you gave it a lot of praise. You really like it?
I do. I really like it. I think there's a lot to like about it. And Ari Lev sent us an email, and he points out what I think are very good and very valid points. That it's based on tropes, and it's based on very familiar tropes, cliches almost. The people, the Tians, are essentially the Asians, and players call them the Asians. The Mwangi are the Africans, the Ulfin are the Vikings, the Varisians are the Gypsies.
Yeah.
And that, he finds it very flat, that the history is kind of empty, and that there's no gradients or subtleties to it. Which I don't know if I agree with that point so much. I think the languages are reasonably well done.
But what's your response to the stereotyping? Do you concur with Ari Lev?
The stereotypes are there, and that would be a terrible thing if this was a literary setting. Like, if I had just come across this and it was a book or it was a series of novels, I'd drop it in the bin and walk away and never think twice.
Right.
But it's a gaming setting, so it needs to engage people in a different way, and it needs to provide familiar hooks for GMs and for players to kind of hang their understanding of things on.
Okay, yes.
So it's kind of a necessary evil in a way, and I think accepting that as a necessary evil, Galerian is done really, really well.
Right, okay.
It's like if the assumptions that the game makes, Pathfinder is essentially an updated version of 3rd edition D&D. And the assumptions that game makes, you have to have orcs and elves and dwarves for anyone to have any interest in it. Because if you remove those elements, then it becomes something too different.
Yeah.
If it was a different gaming system, if it was like a completely homebrew system, then you would have more freedom to change things around. But I still think you'd need to have a lot of familiar tropes for people to engage with, because they're not going to read, hundreds of pages of setting to understand the world.
Yeah, as stereotyped as orcs are, we all know what they are instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're able to engage with them instantly.
What I will agree with is the point Ari makes about the history, and that this is all over histories in fantasy fiction. They're too big in scale. Like, every empire has lasted 3,000 years and stuff, and like 3,000 years ago, we didn't have shoes. It's like,
yeah. I suppose my response to that is that just not an aesthetic thing to get? Why fantasy is big.
Yeah, but that particular aesthetic thing does take me out of it. For some reason, my suspension of belief just is really unforgiving in that one specific point.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think I would be like that at all. But there you go. Difference of opinion, Bill. People have them sometimes.
Oh, no, totally. And they're all valid.
Well, some of them are. Your points are almost identical to mine. When I read Ari's email, I immediately thought, yeah, it is really stereotyped. But that is a necessary evil. I have a friend who studied game development.
Okay.
And some of his lectures were on the importance of stereotyping in gaming environments.
Yeah.
And they actively teach you to stereotype to ensure that people who consume your game understand what's going on right away. because gaming is not, there is no deep reading in gaming. And you don't have time to immerse yourself in the world as much as with a book.
Yeah.
And so hence the reason why you need the stereotypes there. And unfortunately, yeah, they are, it's not great, I suppose, but it's a different platform.
Yeah, it's part of the restrictions imposed by the medium.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the thing he does say here, another point he makes is he doesn't play Pathfinder Society anymore. Now, that's a organized play campaign that is kind of, I've never played it exactly. I'm vaguely familiar with the idea that they release games and then like everyone can play them, and it's sort of even an evolving character, and they have storylines that take place over a year.
Okay.
And I can see that causing problems. That would probably be something with me that would upset me the same way that I find a lot of superhero comics do, or kind of any sort of shared universe comics do, that, it's a shared universe, and once you start examining the fact that it's shared, things no longer work. Do you know what I mean?
No, can you elaborate on that? I don't fully see your point.
So, for example, with superhero comics, so Fantastic Four are fighting Doctor Doom.
Okay.
And Doctor Doom traps them in a magic thing and then proceeds to wreak havoc, and they have to escape and stop him.
Right.
Why can't the X-Men do it?
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay, I see.
And this is the problem I have with these sort of shared universes as regards superhero comics. And then every writer writing their own stories at different rates. So 12 issues of Spider-Man takes place over a month, and then 12 issues of Thor or some other superhero comic or whatever takes place over 6 months or 2 years or something.
Sorry.
This really bothers me as a reader. I can't suspend my disbelief that way.
If you and I were to write a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the equivalent of Fantastic Four and you wrote the equivalent of X-Men.
Yeah.
We could easily get around the shared universe thing by you placing your X-Men stories in, I don't know, the Alpha Quadrant of a galaxy, and then me placing the Fantastic Four stories in the Delta Quadrant, so they don't.
But then it's not in any meaningful way a shared universe, because they're not really sharing anything. Whereas in Marvel they do. They're all in North America.
Okay.
And they all interact with crossover storylines and things, but...
Is that the definition of shared universe, like the interaction between? Not just a statement in the lore that these exist in the same, like, physical universe?
I don't know what the definition would be, but for the working on the thing we're discussing, I mean, that is the fact of it, that they...
Okay, fair point.
The X-Men and Spider-Man and Fantastic Four all live in New York. And the Avengers. And so I wonder, does Pathfinder Society or other organized play campaigns that are kind of, these living campaigns have similar problems in that, things don't really add up when you start to examine them.
Bill, is this you calling for people to email you further on this point? I think people should email Bill on what they think about Pathfinder Society.
Well, I've never played it, so I really will have no valid or interesting response to give, but they're welcome to.
I think everyone should email Bill all the time. Every episode, we need to find some way of getting people to email Bill. So we got another email from a John, and it was a response to your call for people to create non-verbal languages.
Mm-hmm.
And my TLDR of it is that it's a sort of third-party psychic communication system. Do you think that's a fair description?
Yeah, the way I saw it is you're using a third party as a dead drop.
Right, yeah.
Or as like a PO box.
Like a drop, it's like a Dropbox.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'll read out roughly kind of what he says.
Cool.
No, he says, admittedly, it's less of a language and more of a signal relay correspondence. But the implications of it is what's kind of interesting here.
Okay.
Psychics can't communicate directly, and they can't read the minds of other psychics. What happens is the first psychic plants a message into the mind of a non-psychic host, and then the second psychic can read the mind of the host to retrieve that message.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The next thing about it is that the thought message that's implanted is going to be, like the host won't know anything about it, except for they get sort of phantom occurrence of sensations that the psychic implanting the message was experiencing at the time. So say you're leaving a voicemail and this is the example John uses, and you're chewing mint bubblegum at the time, then when you implant the message, the host kind of gets a sort of a minty sensation. It's kind of a minty flavor.
Yeah, which is a really interesting concept.
Yeah. And then he was like, maybe you could extend that into being an explanation for deja vu or things like that. But that might be he was kind of worried it might be a little contrived. I don't think so. I think that's kind of an interesting spin on it.
No, not at all. I didn't think anything about his concept was contrived at all.
Yeah.
And I think, with respect to John, I don't think he realizes how great this idea is. So when we received these emails, I spent a good bit of time pondering about them. And the more I thought about this idea and the more I thought of the implications of this idea, the more brilliant the idea seemed. So I really like this idea.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought it was very cool.
What are your thoughts on it? Or do you have any, or you just thought that's good, cool?
I just thought that's cool.
Okay, I have thoughts.
Okay.
This may get a little bit long-winded, so feel free to cut me off, okay?
Oh, well, that's unlike us.
I know, right? So my initial thought was, this is silly.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, John. That was my initial thought, but it gets better, so hang in there. It was silly because I was like, this would not arise naturally. I didn't think anyways, because I didn't see there was a significant payoff for the host.
Right.
So because it presents a sort of symbiotic relationship, but without a payoff for the symbiote in a way. But then I thought, wait, no, it's not really natural. It can be a constructed thing. Like people could genetically engineer said hosts, you know,
Right.
create them. And then then you need to ask the question, why would they do so? Right? Like, why is the need to communicate psychically so important? Like, assuming they can also speak with their mouths. Right?
Yeah.
And then I thought of, you know, the movie Waking Life by Richard Linklater.
I haven't seen it.
It's a great movie. I encourage everyone to go watch it. It's fantastically avant-garde. It's really good. And if anyone likes philosophy, it's a really good, starting point. So in that, there's a scene about language and how when I say something to you that's abstract, like fear or love or envy and things like that have no concrete thing in the real world, that sound is sent through the air, sent up through your Byzantine conduit into your brain, and is filtered through all your memories of what you think that thing is. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you form an idea of it and you go, yes, I agree with you, person, you are talking about love. Yeah? You with me? Okay.
I'm with you.
But you and the other person would never have experienced the exact same love. Like on a real level, there is no way of experiencing exactly what the other person has experienced. Okay, but yet we find a way to identify with one another. Okay?
Right.
So perhaps these two psychics that John's concept is about are like an advanced form of humans who have developed the ability to communicate psychically and have placed even greater emphasis on the need to really understand the intangible experience of each person. Okay? So when they do communicate with the host and they implant the things in the host like phantom traces of what you've been eating, and I assume it would also extend to phantom traces of memories and of feelings, there's a payoff for the other psychic because they get to physically experience all the abstract intangible things that we cannot physically experience from another person. Are you with me?
I think so. And I mean, although you could just, if you wanted to transmit that, then the side effect, the stimulus side effect wouldn't be necessary. Why could you not just implant everything that you associate with the word love?
No, but it's not your associations. If we take fear, okay?
Yeah.
Let's take fear, right? I've experienced fear in one way, okay? Mm-hmm. A unique way to Edgar, right? And then I tell you a story in which I'm afraid.
Okay.
All right, and then you relate to that fear because you relate it to how you've experienced fear.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe there's some distant future when we've developed telepathic communication like this, that we would place great emphasis when communicating with one another at really physically understanding what the other person's emotion is. Not just understanding it through our perception, but understanding it through their perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we can't do now. And which could be facilitated through this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't.
Yeah.
Could you not just implant those things automatically? And I don't see what the what the phantom stimuli experienced by the host
How are you,
has
how
to
are
do
you,
with it.
how are you implanting them automatically?
No, not automatically, but directly. You're just saying the message you are leaving is all of your associations.
Yeah, no, but John sets it up that you can't do it directly. Like, that's part of his world. That the what you call it, the...
No, not directly to the other psychic, but the message you leave is not anything, is not words. The message you leave is just your associations.
Oh, yeah, but surely that would be another thing how one can communicate. Like, if you just have a feeling message as opposed to a verbal thing. You know what I mean? Like, as in, like, that sort of the idea of constructing a host may have arisen out of people going, oh, we can, like, communicate these intangible things. And then, obviously, you can also do the more mundane vocal things as well. But I think the, like, just the communicating a message, like a vocal message, if you will, wouldn't really be enough to merit the construction of this host. Because, like, you could do that with, like, words or with writing. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Like, yeah, a verbal message can also be a visual message. Whereas the host it can be an emotional message.
Right.
Anyhow, that probably made no sense. But,
no, I think I get you now. Yeah, that's quite interesting. That's an interesting spin on it.
So from my line of thinking, I thought this was brilliant. Like, really brilliant. Like, because it plays this idea of, you know, what it means to be human and how we connect with each other as humans and, like, the abstract nature of our existence. Like, a philosophical, like, void opened up beneath me when I read this. And it was, like, a good couple of hours of this wonderful sort of adventure through philosophy land. It was awesome. John, thank you.
I'm going to dispute you in one thing, though.
Oh, go for it.
Why could it not arise naturally?
I just didn't see enough payoff for the symbiont, for the host. I didn't see what the host was getting out of the symbiotic relationship.
Who says it's a symbiotic relationship?
Well, I suppose maybe I read it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, like, why couldn't it just be something that like, that's whatever that, you know, mutation threw up this thing that people could be psychic but not deal with other psychics. Because, you know, evolution doesn't happen to a grand plan or anything. It just, you know, weird stuff happens and some of it sticks. So why couldn't it be that this was the random thing that got thrown up and stuck, that some people could read, but they couldn't read other people who could read? And so they just happened that they could use hosts instead.
Yeah, but how would the hosts show up? You know?
Because they didn't get that gene or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, why are some people blonde and
yeah.
some people aren't?
Yeah,
or,
no,
and you say, like, what do the hosts get out of it? I mean, what do people get out of having the cold?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think I just read symbiotic into it, actually, now that you put that forward, because, yeah, that fairly demolishes my symbiotic argument. Maybe a part of me wanted it to not arise naturally, in that they would have to genetically engineer them to avail of this ability to be able to communicate the abstractness of the human condition.
But maybe I mean, they can still do that even if it arises naturally.
Yeah, no, I suppose
everything you said is still possible if it's a natural thing. Something about it, just the more I look at it now, there's something kind of sinister about it to me. There's something kind of, I don't know, like invasion film about it.
Oh, I just get hippie.
Like it's pod people.
Oh, I get hippie dippies. That's all I get. I see a load of hippies wanting to talk to each other on, like, the most fundamental of level. And this is the great thing about, you know, creating something, is that you can read into it so many different ways, and it could bring a different sense to so many people, you know?
The death of the author, what?
Yeah, all right. So, do we have any other points to make or anything else to review?
I have a very small one, actually.
Go for it.
To refer to Master and Commander, which I think we spoke about in the very first, in episode 0.
Yeah, the macho film.
The what?
The macho film.
Film?
It's really macho. It's like Men at Sea, remember?
I guess it's quite manly, but I wouldn't have thought it was really like gung-ho or anything.
I thought... Did you not put it to me like that? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember.
No, like it's manly, like, but it's not like manly full of explosions. It's not like, you know, Rambo manly.
Like everyone's favourite Die Hard, yeah?
Die Hard there's more to Die Hard than that, Edgar.
Before we talk about Master Commander, I thought it was really funny that we got a comment about my dislike of Die Hard.
Oh, did we?
And then I thought, I was hoping that someone would be like, Edgar, I understand you. I get it. Die Hard is not a good film. No, not at all. They were just like, Edgar, you're wrong. Simple as.
Well, what can I say?
I know. I shouldn't have been hoping for this. It's just the way it is, you know. But anyway, yeah, Master and Commander, what's up?
So we were talking about the character Maturin.
Yeah.
Who's the naturalist and the doctor on the ship, and how the film implies that if it wasn't for certain events in the film, he would have discovered Darwin's theory of natural selection.
Mm.
And, you know, this like, that breaks my heart every time I watch this film. It's so sad.
Aww.
But just an interesting side point is Paul Bettany, the guy who played Maturin, actually did play Darwin in another film.
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool.
Called Creation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. There you go. Bit of Master and Commander follow up there. Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Do you think this is intentional on the people casting it?
I
Or
doubt
just,
it.
yeah, it'd be nice if it was intentional.
Yeah,
That'd be really
I
cool.
hope so.
Yeah. But that's cool. Nice bit of follow up there. Cool.
I have one final point, and this is going to be a very sort of left of field one. But I was at the local art gallery recently. So
Okay.
this is the visual in Carlo. It's opened about, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago.
All right.
And they had a exhibition, which just closed yesterday, in fact, called Cosmic Dust.
Oh, cool. That sounds like something I like.
Yeah, no, there was really interesting, really broad range of things. It had the film of Voyage to the Moon from like the early 1900s, you know, of the Jules Verne novel.
No to both of those things. No idea.
Okay, well, Jules Verne wrote a novel called Voyage to the Moon, in which I think some guys, they get shot out of a cannon to the moon, because they were, at the time, they're like, hey, we could just use cannons to launch rockets, that would be cool. So,
Brilliant.
Yeah, these guys go to the moon. It's quite well known, and then there was a film, a very early film made of it in France. So it's called Le Voyage dans la Lune, or however it's correctly pronounced in French.
Cool.
So that was one of the things that was being projected, and they had loads of other things about sort of cosmic ideas and that. They also had some books from occultists and esotericists from the early 20th century. Like they had stuff from Rudolf Steiner, who was a mystic, and I think he was interested in perpetual motion and things.
Okay.
But the thing that interested me the most was a piece by an artist called Chris Fita Vasilak,
Right.
who, as it turns out, is actually based in Dublin. Anyway, his piece is called Alobius Historical Excerpt 2122, and it was presented as 3 documents just left in various places around the gallery that you could wander around and read as you wished, as you came across them.
Okay.
And it's a sort of epistolary project. It's 3 letters written from people in 2122 about letters written by sort of esotericists and environmentalists in 1922, which was just before they discovered perpetual motion.
That's meta.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, and I think the people in the 1922 letters are real people. I haven't had time to study it fully, but it looks as though they are real people, and that the letters themselves might actually be real, and that the commentary on them, the commentary from 2122 is what's what the art project is.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I don't know a lot about this guy. He, as I said, he's based in Dublin, and I think he's got a WordPress site. So I'm certainly going to look into him more. But this is essentially it's world building, because he's created the setting. It's just his medium is art.
Yeah, and that's interesting to talk about world building in a non-literary sense.
Yeah, or like in a non kind of entertainment media sense, a non-narrative sense or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna read out any of it because it's kind of a little long.
Have you got links to this?
I don't have links to this, but there's 3 letters and there were envelopes there where you could take it away to look at it in your own time. So I actually have a copy of it here.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's unfortunate for people listening, because it'd be massive copyright infringement to post that up.
I'm sure it would.
Yeah. Oh, that's well. At least we could link to his WordPress.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think we should throw that in the show notes.
Definitely.
So there's interesting. So I'm probably making a lot of table noise here, examining this envelope. There's interesting kind of crossovers with the kind of stuff that we talk about, because he's made a sort of alternate history, and he's also like, it's set in the future, and I think the premise is that these letters from the future are written by someone who's in orbit around a distant star.
Oh, wow.
And it just it draws on so many different things. So yeah, there's a lot of different elements that we can talk about here that we've already discussed. It is in a sense is dealing with science fiction and that kind of thing. It's dealing with alternate history. It's also dealing about sort of 1920s or early 1900s ideas about spirituality and esotericism and possibly like theosophy and that kind of thing. And that is obviously his impulse. The way he said that black metal can be an impulse or languages can be an impulse, it seems like this is his. So yeah, Chris Fitavasilak, or Fitavasilak, I'm not sure how to pronounce his surname. We'll put the link in the show notes anyway.
Definitely.
And maybe Alobius Historical Excerpt 2122 will reappear in another gallery sometime.
Right, have we got anything else to discuss?
I think that is everything as regards follow-up.
Oh no, we have more.
We have more.
Oh my god, we're an hour recording, and this is only follow up.
No, we're only about 50 minutes recording. We've been an hour on Skype. We were chatting before we started recording.
Oh, right,
55 minutes recording.
55 minutes. That's totally acceptable for not the main content. So, just a little bit of news in Edgar's life since the last podcast. So the last time we did the podcast, I had just put up the first language video.
Yeah.
And in the interim, I have put up another 2 language videos and a short story by an author called Eric Lang.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of 30secfantasy.com. And I want to bring this up primarily to thank Eric for working with me, because he was super to work with, and also to ask your opinion of something that stems from this. All right?
Okay.
All right. So I'll link to Eric's short story, The Object. It'll be in the show notes. You should check it out. It's a great story. I don't want to say anything, because anything I do say will probably ruin it. Because
it's really good.
It's really good, and there's a special thing that happens. Go check it out. But a lot of people, Bill, in the comments were like, "You need to do more of these."
Wow.
And so I'm thinking I might just make that a thing, and I want to ask your opinion about that.
My opinion or the listener's opinion?
Well, everyone's, I suppose, but I want you to give me your opinion right now, and then maybe the listeners email me their opinion.
Okay.
So what do you think of the idea of having a short story segment where I animate an author's work?
That's a great idea.
You think so, to intersperse between the tutorial content?
I don't see why not.
Okay. My setup, right, the thing I'm thinking of is that I would have the authors themselves, have them narrate their stories.
Yeah.
Okay, a good idea, bad idea?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea? All right, cool. Now,
if they're not willing to narrate, I can narrate.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend with a luscious narration voice.
Do we?
Who we do. I'll tell you off air who it is, because I don't want to mention any names, but I'm sure he would be willing to help as well. So I have other people.
Oh, I think I know who you mean.
Yeah, there is only one guy, really. But yeah, so that's one point I want to say. And now the other point that was raised a lot by people was, one, the validity of the short story. Would you like the idea of a 1 to 2 minute story every so often, or would you want more?
I like the idea of a 1 to 2 minute story every so often.
Okay, why? Do you mind me asking, just so I can get the feel for this?
I think it sort of suits Artifexian better. That Artifexian is more about world building, and then these are little snapshots of different things you can do rather than in-depth explorations, which I think would take too much time away from the educational content.
Okay, that's exactly
Personally.
that's exactly my feeling as well. It's just that there's a lot of people who are like, longer.
Yeah.
So I thought, again, I want people on the sub to please leave a comment and let me know. But I'm on the shorter end of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will work better. And now the other thing, the last thing, is the idea of announcing the short story. So a lot of people left comments as well saying that you need to put something at the start saying this is a short story by, give us some context when it comes up, right?
Right.
What's your opinion on that? Do you think context or not context? Should they be standalone things, or do I need to say an introductory thing about them?
I think the object worked better with you only saying it at the end. Maybe different stories would suit having a preamble.
Okay.
But I think as long as you're, like, as long as you know when you're clicking the video that you're getting a story rather than like a tutorial, which I think was clear from it was clear that it wasn't a tutorial because it says the object by Eric Lang in the video description, doesn't it?
Well, it says the object, pipe, and then short story.
Oh, right. Well, then, yeah.
Yeah,
and
so...
then, like, you credit him at the end, so that, it's not like you're like stealing any recognition or anything.
Yeah. So for me, I thought that was context enough. The saying of the short story. So again, just to ask your opinion on that. And guys, again, let me know in the comments, because it'd be nice to do something that everyone's on board with,
Yeah, don't be afraid to disagree with us, especially Edgar.
Yeah, no. Email Bill, everyone.
Email Bill with the reasons you disagree with Edgar.
No. If you honestly do disagree with this, like if you think the idea of a short story is just a total waste of time, please let me know. Because
please do.
Yeah, because I like the Artifexian thing, as I mentioned before, will only work with sort of community help,
Yeah.
So
totally.
I need to know what you guys are thinking, and this is the subreddit is the perfect platform to do so.
Yeah, no, guys, so do let us know. You're the community, and, this is such a community-driven project, and it's market research as well. We don't want to be putting out content that you don't want to hear, so...
I do really like the inclusion of we in my videos, but that's okay. Your point is okay.
Well, you're always talking about including me more in the brand. Obviously, the videos are entirely your domain.
No, I'm just teasing. Sometimes I feel bad actually not having you as a credit at the end of every video. Because there's been a huge amount of videos where we've had a lot of back and forth before I publish a video. So we're almost collaborating on a lot of my projects.
Hardly now.
Well, you're definitely some. Definitely
I do a bit of proofreading, that's it.
The colors video. That's the prime example. I think you are responsible for all of the colors video.
Great.
All right, okay. I think after an hour and 12 minutes, we should probably leave follow-up here.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough.
All right.
So, shall we talk about Galaxies?
Let's talk about Galaxies. So, Galaxies, Bill.
Galaxies.
Yeah, so...
What's that all about?
Well, if you want to know what that's all about, I recommend that the listeners pause here and go check out the 4 Galaxy videos on Artifexian, which I will link to in the show notes, because we're going to speak about them in a broader context now.
Yeah, and they should have been put up on the subreddit in the last few days as well.
Yeah, the plan is that we're going to put up what we speak about in terms of videos a little bit before we release the podcast, as a sort of kind of like the podcast is coming sort of thing.
Yeah.
So check those videos out. Otherwise, things we say here might not make sense.
Okay,
so one thing I want to say about the videos is that I never included any sort of mapping in the videos. I just spoke about like the physical nature of galaxies.
Yeah.
And I think here would be a nice place to talk about this.
Okay, so in terms of mapping, you mean like physically mapping out the shape of the galaxy?
No, more kind of like how one divides it up into various different sections. Kind of like how one divides up land masses into countries.
Okay.
So there, from my research on this, there's kind of 2 ways in which one can map a galaxy. There's the country method of mapping a galaxy, where you divide up by political powers in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in the Warhammer 40k galaxy. And the other way is to do a more kind of maybe rigorous system, where you just simply divide it up into geometric sections.
Okay, they seem... I don't think they're mutually exclusive, though.
No, but I suppose it's just an aesthetic thing which one you want to go for. Well, the Warhammer 40k one looks cooler than, say, Star Trek's quadrants.
Yes, Star Trek has the quadrants, but it also has Klingon space and Bajoran space.
Yeah, I suppose...
Which would be more analogous to the countries.
Yeah, I suppose the quadrant thing must be sort of like... where they all got together and decided this is how we're going to map the entire thing. I suppose there's 2 levels going on there. Yeah, you can have 2. Exactly. I hadn't thought of that.
I guess maybe it's something like on maps of Earth, we have the countries and the borders and all that, and we also have latitude and longitude. They're measuring different things, or they're representing different things.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can have both at once. I will say to people, though, if they are going to divide up into quadrants, or any sort of segments of a circle, don't do what Star Trek does in terms of its naming convention. Because Star Trek has a terrible naming convention. The quadrants go alpha, beta, delta, gamma, going clockwise around the circle, starting at the bottom left-hand corner. No, going anti-clockwise, sorry.
Yeah.
Which is silly because, I mean, like, you know, that means you don't have the alphabetical order correct, you know?
Yeah, it's like you started on a new line, kind of. You went alphabet and then you went on to the next line and went gamma delta instead of keeping it a continuous circle.
Exactly. Yeah. I would like to advocate, if you are going to do quadrants, I would like to advocate calling your quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4, and basing it on the Cartesian plane. And at least in the way maths is taught in the US, I'm not sure if it's like this everywhere, the top right hand quadrant is 1, the top left hand quadrant is 2, the bottom left hand quadrant is 3, and the bottom right hand quadrant is 4. So if you do it like that, people immediately have some sort of intuitive feel for what's going on.
I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah, as we've kind of talked about a little bit, yeah. I don't know, I want to ask the listeners, is this a thing that just exists in the US? Because to be honest, when I was doing school here in Ireland, I never heard that either. But then now that I've started doing Khan Academy, it comes up all the time. So I wonder what's going on there. So someone please let me know.
Yeah. My issue with that is, as regards the Cartesian plane, is that it's completely arbitrary. And I know it would make sense to have a degree of arbitrariness for, say, mapping a galaxy or whatever, that something has to be named something. But why could you not just call one positive x, positive y, or some name derived from its properties, rather than just calling it 1?
Yeah, because you were saying before, it gives a sense of primacy as well.
Yeah, that's part of why I don't like it. It's just, I don't know, I can't explain it exactly. It just seems kind of silly to me.
I see, I don't have that big a problem with it. My main problem with it would be the fact that it's quadrants, because a quadrant of a galaxy is huge. And I think...
Oh no, but I'm talking about with regards to the plane, the Cartesian plane.
Oh, you're not talking about the galaxy at all, you're talking about maths.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
It's a really weird convention to me.
I would say in a math sense, yes, positive x, positive y would make more sense. But I think if you were to apply that to galaxies, go with something easier like 1 or alpha. You know, it's
for a purpose of actually mapping or naming things, yeah, it does make sense that something has to be given some kind of name.
Yeah, I agree though. I agree. Positive x, positive y is good.
Although in a galaxy, you could do something that was arbitrary, like give it a compass direction, so you'd have the northwest quadrant.
Oh, but that's a bit weird because, then you got to start saying what is north.
Yeah, but you're already doing that when you're mapping things anyway, and when you're dividing into quadrants anyway. You're already making arbitrary distinctions of where that axis that you're dividing along is. And you said that, in the Star Trek galaxy, the bottom left is alpha or whatever. I mean, saying that it's the bottom left one is, again, still arbitrary.
Yeah, that's a fair point, yeah. I don't know, something about north and south seems terrestrial to me. Now, I'm well aware that, you have, the galactic North Pole. I'm well aware that we use these words. I don't know, I suppose I just... part of me thinks that, a civilization that is going to be able to map a galaxy will probably try and do it in a more rigorous sense. So I would, your positive x, positive y, or just based numerically. I don't know.
But that's not any more rigorous. It's
I know.
The same distinctions. You're just using different vocabulary.
Oh, I know, yeah. It just has a more rigorous feel to it, I suppose. I totally get that they're both arbitrary. But anyways, like I say, the idea of a quadrant, I still think is a bit flawed because it's just too vast, really. It's
too big to be meaningful, and it's going to be too heterogeneous. There's going to be so much different stuff within a quadrant.
One could divide up into segments as well. Then you can do something cool. You can put in little Easter eggs, play with prime numbers or whatever. have like a prime number of segments, and that, that might be cool. And that will reduce the area of each of the segments, because, yeah, I mean, like, an entire quadrant is just... Like, what is it? Hold on, that's if the Milky Way is 100,000 light years across, that means a quadrant is 50,000 by 50,000 light years. If we were to square it off.
Yeah.
Like, that is just too big.
Hold on, so it's 100,000 light years across, so it's pi r squared over 4, so it's... Someone do the maths here. 50,000 squared by 3.14 divided by 4. That's really big. And also, you're not even accounting for thickness there.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's another thing that people actually totally forget. They totally forget that galaxies are quite thick.
Yeah. How thick is the Milky Way at where we are?
I have no idea. You'd have to look it up.
I'm Googling it right now. 10,000.
10,000 light years?
Its average thickness is 10,000 light years. It's 30,000 light years at the nucleus.
Wow.
Like, so it's probably a little bit less around us.
Oh, it definitely is, yeah. Well, there you go. There's raw data to support the fact that you must take thickness into consideration.
Yeah, and that is a lot. That is a big... And if it's 100,000 light years across, that means it's like 10% of that in thickness, which is really big.
Yeah, it's very, very big.
That's it's kind of the proportions of a biscuit, maybe.
That's a very diminished. That kind of diminishes the status of a galaxy.
No,
dear Mr. Galaxy, you are effectively a biscuit.
Think of a digestive biscuit. That's probably about 1/10 as thick as it is broad.
Are there digestive biscuits in every country?
There should be.
Well, I don't know about there should be hobnobs in every country, but or ginger nuts. My all-time favorite biscuit. Ginger nuts, everyone.
Ginger nuts your favorite?
Oh, ginger nuts are the best.
Huh. I mean, I quite like them. I just didn't expect them to be your favorite.
Oh no, when you dunk them in tea and then the ginger reacts with the like milkiness. Oh, it's just so...
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Apparently they're called graham crackers or graham crackers in the States.
Oh, are they? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, although graham crackers are typically a little drier and more brittle.
Are you Googling?
Maybe.
Drier than a ginger nut. Wow.
No, drier than a digestive.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Graham crackers are what they call digestives in the States, but they're a little drier and more brittle.
Anyhow, let's get back to galaxies, yeah?
The point I'm making is that that's a very significant dimension to take into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it is taken into consideration that often, really.
No.
So, yeah, totally. There's one final point I want to say on this. It's not really a mapping thing. It's more of a traveling through your galaxy thing.
Mm-hmm.
In that, at some stage, you're going to need to... The world builder, if he's building on the galactic scale, is going to need to figure out how one orientates themselves in the galaxy. Like, if you're on a spaceship, how you orientate and define where your direction of travel is.
Okay.
And I think the best way to do this is probably the Star Trek way. Of having the azimuth elevation angles. So what that is you have two angles that determine the orientation of a spaceship. So one angle is going to be about a circle that lies in the galactic plane.
Mm-hmm.
And one's going to be about a circle that runs north-south along the poles.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Star Trek does this all the time. Like, if you ever watch an episode and they go, set a heading or plot a course for 024 Mark 35. What they're saying is the first set of digits, 024, is 24 degrees along the galactic plane. And then Mark is the word they use to separate digits, and 35 is 35 degrees along the north-south plane.
Right.
So that's what they're saying. It's not just technobabble, like it's actual, genuinely works.
Okay. Now, is that in relation to the ship itself, or is it like a global thing?
Right, so Star Trek is really inconsistent about these things. It can be both. You can have if you're in relation to the ship, that means you have wherever the ship is facing is 0 degrees.
Okay.
Okay, and you just mark off from there. And then you can also have an absolute heading where the line between the ship you are on and the center of the galaxy is 0 degrees. So you orientate no matter where you are in the galactic plane, that's always going to be 0 degrees, and you orientate yourself about that.
Okay.
I think
Trying to get my head around this in 2 dimensions.
Yeah, it's a great little mind exercise.
So for the absolute one, if you say 024 Mark 35 or whatever, and you say the same thing on a ship in a different location, will they end up in the same place?
No.
Okay,
No.
Yeah, no, that's I was thinking they wouldn't. I think I know what you mean now.
So I would advise world builders here, because I've tried to map based on the directions given in Star Trek to try and find out what's their most consistent method of travel or method of determining travel. And it's not consistent. So I would advise world builders to pick a conceit, to pick one version of travel and stick with it and don't vary from it. Otherwise it gets really confusing.
Right.
And I think probably, well, for me anyways, the most intuitive one is the sort of relative heading, where wherever the spaceship is pointing is 0 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's necessarily the best, but you don't need to spend a few seconds thinking about where everything is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a tricky one.
Because
I'm not used to thinking in 2 dimensions like this. I was always terrible at flying games when I was a kid. You know, like when you had games where you'd have a spaceship or have a plane or whatever.
Really?
I was really bad at them. Yeah.
Is that because you don't understand 3 dimensions, or just does one
I'm
need
pretty
to
okay with the concept of 3 dimensions. Yeah, I don't know. No, because I'm pretty good at spatial stuff in general,
right?
And puzzles and objects that involve puzzles and things. But something about flying, I've always found tricky.
Really?
Yeah. I actually, thinking about it, I quite like the absolute system because you can also use that as a means of locating places. If you have 2 angles and a distance, then you can select any place.
Right, that's very true, but you could make it easier and just use Cartesian coordinates to find a place.
Yeah.
I would find the Cartesian coordinates slightly easier to understand.
The fact that it's in a sort of a roughly circular kind of system makes me prefer the kind of the polar.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a fair point. I would still come down on the Minecraft coordinate systems a little bit easier.
And also because it's dynamic. Because it's a rotating system, it seems to make more sense to use polar. I don't know why, that doesn't really make any sense now I've said it out loud.
No, it seems like the angle one is a more kind of educated grown-up version of things. And then the Cartesian one is kind of like anyone can understand it. But there you go. There's 2 ways of plotting course and how one places objects in the galaxy. So yeah.
Great.
Cool. Will we move on? Let's
move on. What's next on our agenda?
Let's look at the Star Wars galaxy for a bit.
Star Wars. Right.
Star Wars. What do you know about the Star Wars galaxy, Bill?
It is full of aliens.
It is.
Who all have... They each have just got one profession. Except there's always one member who's a Jedi.
This is very true. Anything else you know about the Star Wars galaxy?
It's far away.
I dispute that, but okay.
That's part of the basic premise.
I still dispute it. You'll see in a second. I have valid grounds to dispute that, but go on.
The core is heavily inhabited. Coruscant is the capital, and that's in the core somewhere.
Okay.
That's about it. The Yuuzhan Vong are from outside the galaxy.
Jesus, who are the Yuuzhan Vong?
Oh, they crop up in the later novels. They're aliens who aren't at all affected by the Force, and they don't they don't have any midichlorians or whatsoever. So the Force can't affect them, and they can't be detected by it.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
And yeah, no, I just read this from browsing Wikipedia
while we're recording a podcast. Yeah.
Not while recording podcasts, just over many years of internet boredom. That's about it. I mean, I don't really know much else to it about it.
So the Star Wars galaxy is, in terms of physical characteristics, is pretty dull.
It's a spiral galaxy.
It's a spiral galaxy.
Yeah.
It's slightly bigger than our galaxy.
Okay.
It's 20,000 light years bigger-ish, give or take. It's the same age as our galaxy, roughly. And it is, I suppose not everyone noticed, it's orbited by 6 companion galaxies.
Oh, cool.
And I think they come into play in the expanded universe. I think there's a bit of interplay between them. I'm not 100% sure of that. And
the companion galaxies are bigger things than the Magellanic Clouds, right?
Oh, I don't know about size. I have no idea
but
what size.
are the Magellanic Clouds companion galaxies, or are they something that's like of a different class?
I would imagine that the 6 companion galaxies are equivalent to the Magellanic Clouds.
Okay.
And then it's also orbited by about 200 plus globular clusters.
Okay, yeah, so, I confused those two.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's a bit unimaginative, but I suppose Star Wars doesn't hinge upon great galactic world building. It's more about all the aliens and their one profession, you know?
Yeah.
From my own looking at it from various sources, I reckon if you've watched the videos, you'll understand what this means. I reckon it's an SB or an SC galaxy. So spiral B class and spiral C class. That kind of determines the morphology of it.
Okay.
I just want to put in there because I spend a lot of time looking at these things. I just want to prove that my time isn't wasted. So then it's broken up into various regions. This is kind of like, I suppose this kind of is a weird cross between what we already spoke about, between the quadrant sort of system and the political system. Like arbitrary versus political powers, in that it's broken up into about 10 separate regions that radiate out from the core.
Okay.
And I'm not going to list them all, but you have like deep core, then you have the colonies and like...
You mean they're concentric?
They're concentric, exactly. Well, roughly concentric, yeah. So it's kind of like, it's a mix between political and arbitrary, I think.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's another way of thinking about it. And then throughout the galaxy, you have hyperspace trade routes, which allow for like super fast travel across the galaxy.
Okay.
I suppose sort of equivalent to the wormhole in Star Trek. Because the space travel's a lot different in the galaxy in Star Wars. Because their like warp drive capabilities are so far beyond Star Trek, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I did the maths on this, Bill, again. And it's stated somewhere that it takes 16 hours to get from Alderaan to Coruscant.
Okay.
Which is a 5,000 light year trip. And then extrapolating and applying that to the whole galaxy, it looks like you could probably get from one end of the galaxy to the other in something like a month, perhaps. Which is silly.
Right.
Which is really silly. Can I advocate for world builders to respect the awesome scope of galaxies?
Hold on, but it's 120,000 light years across, right?
Yeah.
So divide 120 by 5, and you've got 24. So 24 by 16 is going to be less than a month.
Yeah, I rounded up.
It's going to be 16 days.
Yeah, I got 17 days. I rounded up to a month because you see, they're not hard facts. Because the trip from Alderaan to Coruscant, apparently you have to take some sort of deviating route because there's some sort of like gravity well in the way. So it's not a straight line sort of thing. So allowing for errors, round up to a month. It's something on the order of days, anyways.
So you can't just like hyper jump anywhere along any route, or that you can, but certain routes are faster.
Yeah, I think so. I think some of them, some routes are a bit convoluted to get around stuff. Because the idea, I think, is that if you come to a gravity well, it like sucks you out of hyperdrive.
Right.
I think that's the idea. Feel free to correct me, internet. So you have to like try and bypass these gravity wells or massive stars or nebulae and things like that. Okay, now, you mentioned, this is the only reason I wanted to talk about Star Trek is this next point, really. Or Star Wars, should I say, is this next point. You mentioned that the galaxy is far, far away.
I only said far once.
Okay. Is far away, right?
Right.
There is some data to suggest that the Star Wars galaxy is in fact Andromeda.
Andromeda's pretty far away, man.
Yeah, but like, it's not that far away, to be fair. Okay, so can I go? This is a theory I found on a site called debate.org.
I'm very interested to hear this.
Yeah, this immediately caught my eye. I'll see what you think about it. I like it. I'm converted. But we'll see what you think. Okay, so it all starts, Bill, with the movie E.T.
Oh dear, okay.
Oh, do you not like E.T.?
Not really.
Okay, alright, you don't need to like it. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the tagline, on the movie poster for E.T., it says, he's afraid, he's totally alone, he's 3 million light years from home.
Right.
Okay, now, 3 million light years from the Milky Way is roughly Andromeda. Andromeda is about 2.6, 2.7.
Okay.
Allowing for rounding up here, error and things like that. E.T. could be from Andromeda.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
That makes sense, yes.
That makes sense, cool. Now, Sticking with ET for a second, do you remember the scene where it's Halloween time and he's out on the streets and he's wearing a costume?
Vaguely.
Okay, so he's out in the streets wearing a costume, right? So he can actually go outside, and because of the time of year, it doesn't really matter if he is seen as an alien because it's Halloween. But he's out in the streets and there's loads of kids running around doing trick-or-treating, and he sees one kid dressed as Yoda. Okay?
Yeah.
And he gets really excited and points at Yoda and goes, home, home, home. So
Right.
perhaps he recognized this face.
Yeah.
Now-
or at least the species.
Or at least the species, exactly. Now, skip forward to the episode 1 of Star Wars. And you know all the scenes where they're in the Galactic Senate?
I haven't seen episode 1,
Yeah, don't. It's terrible. But
but I'm pretty sure those scenes. I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to talk about, and I think it's in 3.
is it in 3? Oh, I thought it was in 1. Okay.
Go on anyway. I'll
It
see
is-
if we're talking about the same thing.
It is in one of the new Star Trek movies. Star Wars. God, I'm going to get this so wrong every time. Don't kill me, internet. So in the Galactic Senate, you have like all the different aliens are represented. They all have their little pods.
Yeah.
And it is clear that there is a pod dedicated to the ET species. And they're even named in the backstory. I can't remember their names. So, extrapolating, one could make the argument that Andromeda is in fact a Star Wars galaxy.
Okay. I mean, it's not implausible.
Yeah, it's well, yeah. I think it's pretty solid. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of other factors you can take into account here.
like
Well, how long ago is Star Wars meant to be?
okay. Oh, this is true. Can I bang on about nerdy stuff on this?
Will I be able to stop you?
Not a chance. Okay, so given this revelation, okay, someone was like, hang on, wait, so these are two physical places. We can link certain things that happen in both places in the Star Wars universe and in Andromeda and find the timescale, yeah?
Okay.
People did this, okay, and it turns out that Anakin Skywalker, all right, became Darth Vader on the 15th of November, 2,598,146 BC. Which I think is just so cool.
How, based on what?
Based on, I think in the lore, there is some mention of a massive supernova. And they describe it, and it fits with the description of a known supernova in Andromeda. So basically, they just link those two and then work backwards.
As in, it happened on the same day?
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is, I love the way people on the internet are willing to dedicate time to this. I think that's fantastic. It made me so happy. And I don't even care if it's flawed. Like, it may well be flawed. That's great. I just think it's awesome.
I've got a couple of, not exactly rebuttals, but just other points to consider.
Go for it.
Okay, so let's take that as a reasonable timescale, 2 million years. Actually, no, well, that's kind of begging the question, isn't it? What I'm saying is, even if it is the same species as ET that you see in the Galactic Senate, he could be coming from somewhere else. If this was a long, long time ago and that species is still extant, he could be coming from a different galaxy. He could have gone to Andromeda, or the species could be in Andromeda and that's where he came from, but that doesn't mean the Star Wars universe is the same one. They might have gone to Andromeda after their portrayal in Star Wars.
Oh, okay, so there's a possibility that ET originated in a different galaxy and they've migrated into the Star Wars galaxy.
No, migrated into Andromeda.
Yeah, migrated into Andromeda. Sorry, yeah. That's a very valid point. Yeah, that's very true. There's also there's a million different ways of destroying this postulate. You can also say that ET gets really excited when he sees just something that isn't human. Like, no connection to another species at all. You know?
Yeah.
He just doesn't. He sees something that's not like a big sack of water, big pink sack of water, and it's kind of like, dude, I like you.
There is something about Star Wars toys in that film, though, isn't there? Like, he's playing with a Luke Skywalker, the kid is, at one point.
I think, I could be wrong again, but I think I remember reading in passing that there was a discussion between Spielberg and Lucas at some stage about how to put in these little Easter eggs. I think this was a planned thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the timeline works out there, but I'm pretty sure I read that. So, yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I actually get really kind of tired of Easter eggs like this.
Do you?
Yeah, it's because I was reading this, there's this one show, I think it's St.Elsewhere.
Okay.
And that was full of allusions to loads of other TV shows. And I think the revelation at the end was that the entire TV show, it was set in a hospital. And the entire show, you find out at the end, had actually taken place in the mind of a sick child in the hospital.
Okay.
And because of the way it had overlapped with all of the other shows, and it became a sort of an in-joke among creatives and showrunners and things, there's this whole thing on the internet about proving that every other show is actually just in the mind of this child from St. Elsewhere, and I just find it really tiresome.
So you're okay with the concept of Easter eggs? It's just this sort of bashing of Easter eggs.
Yeah, just like appreciate them for what they are. They're Easter eggs, and I don't know, I think overextending them into grand theories is just a little, I don't know, I find it a little dull.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, don't overdo it. Well, like anything in life, don't overdo things.
There's a nice one in Battlestar Galactica. You've watched Battlestar Galactica, haven't you?
This is the remake, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a nice one in Battlestar Galactica, though, in the fleet. I don't know how much you see it through the series, but certainly at the start, in the fleet, there is a Firefly-class ship.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
But Firefly happened way after, didn't it?
Nope.
Did it not? How old is Firefly?
Firefly finished in 2002 or 2003, and Battlestar Galactica started in 2003.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Jesus, wow.
Firefly's 15 years old.
That is mental. That is crazy. For some reason, I had in my head that this is totally new. I haven't watched Firefly, so I don't know at all.
Oh,
really.
I thought you had. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, we've discussed this loads. No, you haven't, obviously.
Yeah. You've watched it.
Just recently, yeah.
Yeah, and I plan on watching it after I finish Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise.
Don't watch Voyager.
I need to watch Voyager just to see what it's about. Like,
that's so bad.
I live with people in Dublin who are adamant that Voyager is the greatest Star Trek. And they will, I think, be quite angry if I don't at least attempt to watch Voyager.
Oh, well, this is a discussion for another day. I'll air my grievances with Voyager on another day.
This is true. We could bring back Edgar's Trek segment. Where he talks about Star Trek.
Trek car.
But anyhow, so what you call it? That's kind of what I wanted to say about the Star Wars Galaxy. It's a little bit boring in terms of physical makeup. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit unrealistic in how they travel across it. And I know it's fiction and all, but like they kind of don't even like the scope is. There's no reason for the scale of a galaxy there, you know?
Well, this brings me back to what I said in the first episode,
exactly,
episode 0, that it may as well be an ocean. It may as well be a story about brave pirates fighting an evil colonial empire.
Exactly. So I think if you are going to use a galaxy, like, do what Star Trek does. And where Voyager gets trapped out in the Delta Quadrant?
Yeah.
Like, that's a 75-year trip home. Like, that is a long time. And it makes you, even just those words make you think, God, that's a big place, that galaxy, you know?
Again, you could tell that same story if you got blown off course, rounding Tierra del Fuego, and you had to cross the Pacific and the Indian Ocean to get back to Europe. Yeah,
but never that sort of timescale, though. You know?
How long does Voyager take? A few years?
No, isn't it? It's a 75-year trip.
Yeah, it doesn't actually take that long on the show, though.
Oh, I haven't watched it, you see.
All right.
I only know about it. Oh, okay. Wait, I don't want to ask this, do I?
Ask, no. And I may or may not answer.
Okay, I'll ask, but don't spoil things for me, okay?
I won't.
Do they make it home?
I can't remember exactly.
Okay, all right.
Because I don't think I actually finished watching the series.
You just couldn't stick it, no?
Pretty much, yeah.
I really hope they don't make it home. That would be brilliant. They spend all their effort.
It would be a cool ending, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, here's hoping. In any case, so Star Wars Galaxy, sorry, to summarize one more time. A bit boring physically, a bit unrealistic in terms of scope. If you're going to have a galaxy, maybe try and, bring that sort of awe, that vastness of space, you should bring. And that's essentially it on the Star Wars Galaxy. Now, can we look at the Star Trek Galaxy?
Yes, a fictional version of our galaxy.
A fictional version of our galaxy, exactly. Which do you prefer, Bill? If you were making a galactic fiction, or writing a galactic fiction, would you go for, the Milky Way in a very distant future, or would you go make up an entire galaxy from scratch?
I'd probably make a new one.
Why? More specifically, why not stick with, the Milky Way?
Because then I will be tied to, like, real things. And I know there's a lot of variation out there, but I'd rather have the freedom to create things kind of from the ground up.
Yep, I think I would do the same. There is something cool though about, like, if if a particular episode of Star Trek happened on Tau Ceti, or a planet orbiting Tau Ceti, that you can kind of look up in the sky and go, that's that star.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I do like the fact that Wolf 359 is a real place.
Yeah.
And it depends on the story I wanted to tell. I mean, obviously there's great stories you could tell in a future version of the galaxy, but I think for most purposes, all other things being equal, I'd rather create a new one and explore things that way.
And then, like we kind of discussed off air a bit, when one creates a new one can use any morphology they want. And then that can lead to greater creative freedom. So definitely. the reason why I bring up the Star Trek galaxy is 1 point and 1 point alone. Because, like, if you want to know about the Star Trek galaxy, Google the Milky Way. But at 1 point is, I just want to talk about how they do warp in the Star Trek universe.
Okay.
And again, I apologize to people if I'm confusing Star Wars and Star Trek. It's very hard to get it exactly right, okay? So, don't kill me here. So, like we pointed out in the Star Wars galaxy, hyperspace is like this crazy fast thing. And I don't think they have done the maths with it. I don't think there's a formula governing how fast they go.
Right.
Whereas in the Star Trek universe, they have, which is great. So that means they actually have, like, constraints on where they can travel and how fast they can do it. So the formula, there's two formulas. This is going to get a bit mathsy here, guys. But there's two formulas. One from the original series and one from the next generation. Mm-hmm. In the original series, your velocity is equal to your warp factor cubed times the speed of light.
Okay.
All right, very, very simple. So when they say, in Star Trek, when they say go to warp 2, so that's 2 cubed, because that's the warp factor 2. 2 cubed times the speed of light, so that means you're going 8 times the speed of light.
Yeah.
Very simple. So it scales exponentially. And just in case anyone's unaware, you cannot hit 10. Normally, when Q steps in and does something stupid, then yes, you can. But normally you can't hit warp 10. You can only ever get infinitely close to warp 10.
Why is that?
I think it's just a restraint they set up.
Okay, that's just like, it's another sort of physical law within the context of the universe.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with, like, it would take infinite energy to speed up past warp 10 and then equals MC squared and something like that.
Right.
Which is
good.
good.
Just set the bar for relativity a little bit higher.
Yeah. Well, no, which is good though, because otherwise you can go, crank up the engines to warp 50, and then you do what Star Wars does, and you're over the other side of the galaxy in 10 days.
Yeah.
It's good that they have this, like, thing, so that actually, their journeys, like, take a believable, and I use that word, like, loosely, a believable amount of time. Mm-hmm. And in the next generation, they updated it slightly. I don't know why they updated it slightly, but they did. Velocity is equal to the warp factor to the power of 10 over 3 times the speed of light.
So it's slightly faster.
So it's slightly faster. Yeah, slightly faster. I have no idea why they did that, but they did. So, dear world builder, if you are building a galaxy and you have all the physical things set up and now you're wondering about how to travel around it, I would use those equations. I think they're really handy, and you can really easily get a sense of scale and distance.
I quite like that they changed them, though. That's because things like that do change. Then they might have updated the terminology in the 70 years between original series and Next Generation, or however long it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's good. It's kind of like a living universe. Although I still want to check. Maybe
it was probably done accidentally, but
yeah. Well, like we said about Star Trek world, so much of it is just hand wavium.
Yeah, and then post hoc justifications for it.
Exactly. I think that's probably what happened to the quadrant system, though.
Oh, yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah, exactly. So World Builder planned these things from the start. There you go. That's all I want to say about Star Trek Galaxy, Bill.
Cool.
I just wanted to bring up the thing about speed. Yeah?
I'm trying to think of other examples of things that use our galaxy except in the future. I'm sure there's millions of them.
Yeah, I'm sure as well. There's also a couple of works of fiction that use the Magellanic Clouds.
Really?
What fiction escapes me? I'm going to completely take a stab out in the dark here, but I think Niven has something in the Magellanic Clouds. But I'm running the risk of being 100% wrong.
I don't think known space is that big anyway. Maybe the later books go out that far, but I don't think.
We'll throw the link in the show notes
Yeah.
because there's a Wikipedia page on, I think it's fiction set in other galaxies. I'll link to this. I think it's Niven.
There's at least one Ian Banks book which does. I think I mentioned this in the last episode, actually.
Which book is this?
Player of Games.
You did mention Player Games. Do you want to fill me in again on this?
The main character takes a trip to civilization, this kind of horrific barbaric empire that is based in the Magellanic Clouds. Was essentially it.
Oh, cool. Very good. Yeah. Very good.
And it takes a long time to get there because of the void in between without any kind of mass in it. There's an actual proper void. Whatever way he justifies his ships working, they need to have mass around them to achieve high speed, so it takes a long time to get out there.
So, do you know about the Fermi paradox, Bill?
I'm familiar with the concept. I don't know the exact thing, but it's essentially, if life arises and the universe is so big, how come we haven't seen aliens?
Exactly, that's exactly it. With all the stars out there and all the planets and all the time we've had for life to develop, where are all the aliens? That's essentially it. And we obviously haven't answered that because we haven't found any aliens. And I think trying to speculate as to why we haven't found any aliens can really inform how one builds a galaxy.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting concept. I would advise anyone to go read about it. I'll throw a link in the show notes to the Wikipedia page, and I will also throw a link to a Kurzgesagt video on the Fermi paradox because it's very good.
Kurzgesagt.
Kurzgesagt, German for kind of in a nutshell.
Short saying.
Short saying, exactly, yeah. I think they're based in Germany, but it's all in English.
Mm-hmm.
So check that out and try and think about why there aren't any aliens, dear listener. And that will inform how you build. Why do you think there's no aliens, Bill?
Why haven't we come across any?
Yeah, why do we see no aliens? There may well be loads of them, but why don't we see any?
Because space is really big.
Or put another way, do you think there's aliens out there?
I mean, probably. Space is really big,
Okay, cool.
I'd be very surprised if, nowhere in all the vastness of space that there wasn't something that we would recognize as life.
I would be very surprised too. I am glad there are no aliens.
Why's that?
Well, we don't see any aliens. We haven't interacted with them. I think interacting with aliens would be literally the worst thing possible.
Really?
Yeah. So for me, if I was writing some sort of galactic fiction, the whole point of the story would be this conflict with meeting other alien races and a philosophical debate as to whether or not one should engage with aliens.
Right.
Because I just think it's all around the bad idea. I think that trying to send signals to them is bad. I think, making our place known in the universe is bad. It's just nothing good can come of it in my mind. Yeah, and I suppose the reason why I think this is if we look at the history of Earth, anytime any sort of foreigners, in quotes, have met another race or another peoples, it's always ended in either war or disease or whatever, but it always ended in death for a lot of people.
I don't know if it's true that any time that happened is the case.
Okay, but when the English came over to Americas,
yeah,
rampant disease.
Yeah, okay, that's a separate situation. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen a lot. I'm saying that I don't think it was every time two populations encountered that it ended badly for everyone.
Okay, fair enough. But I think if we are to meet an alien race, I think there's a very high probability our immune system mightn't be able to deal with their diseases. And everyone dies. They might die, we might die.
I don't think so at all.
Really? We wouldn't be at all worried.
I mean, obviously there could be bad things that happen, but wouldn't get diseases from them? How would we get diseases from them? Well, they need to be so similar to us for there to be a chance to be compatible diseases.
Do you think?
Yeah. Like, think of all the diseases that, like, dogs get that we don't. You know?
Yeah, but then in the same thing, you can think of all the diseases that other species get, like not necessarily dogs, that we get.
Yeah, but come on, this is stuff that has grown up like with an entirely different biological and biochemical history. Like, if it's going to be truly alien life, it's going to be properly alien.
But
like,
But why?
Why would it even have like a biochemistry that we could meaningfully interact with?
I think there's probably a great possibility that if we do find aliens, they will be like very like us. It seems like the elements that form life seem to be kind of just good at that, you know? So if they probably will be, you know, carbon based.
They might be carbon based, but will they have like double helical DNA?
I think I wouldn't take the risk. You know, I wouldn't take the risk blindly shouting out into the dark. I think a good analogy is this, right? It's imagine we as Earthlings are in a jungle.
Right.
Okay, and every time like SETI sends out a signal to the cosmos, you know, saying, "Dear aliens, come, you know, we're here." It's kind of like us standing in the jungle, shouting out into the darkness, and then going, "Well, wouldn't it be great when the tigers come?" You know? Like, yeah, I am very fearful of alien contact, like really fearful.
I think it will be the coolest thing ever.
I think it's something that we probably will have to do if they are out there. Like, it would be a great shame if we just said, you know, no, we're not going to interact with you at all. But I think the interaction will be dangerous, very dangerous. And that's aside from warfare and, you know, taking over and things like that. I know, the whole thing fills me with awful dread.
Oh, so I really don't think we'd catch diseases from them.
Huh. There you go. There's something to follow up. I might look into that. I know some scientists have raised that concern, and I think I've written papers on it because I think it is a real concern. In any case, Bill, I would, if I was writing some sort of galactic fiction, I probably wouldn't write galactic fiction. I'd like keep it to a solar system level because of my personal feelings about aliens. So that's the importance of answering this Fermi paradox for yourself to inform your work.
Can I digress very slightly for a moment?
That is what this podcast is all about.
When I was about 10 years old, we had... What English books did you have in school? Did you have ones that were like... did you start out with like a Huggy Bear and stuff in junior infants?
Oh man, I can't remember what happened last week.
Okay, well anyway, when I was about 10, one of the workbooks we were doing English from had this little essay in it that we had to answer questions on. And it was about a scientist or a doctor or someone who wondered why someone in Berlin and someone in New York might catch the same illness on the same day. And he was like, isn't that really strange? I wonder why that is. Maybe Earth goes through clouds of bacteria in space, and that's why two people so far apart can catch the same illness. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it strikes me as completely unfounded, but yeah.
Like,
it's interesting that they think that way.
But like, it's such patent nonsense.
But
like they never heard of just like a coincidence. Like, like millions of people catch colds every day. Like, why would someone in Berlin not catch it the same day someone in New York did?
Could it be that said author was writing to try and engage the children's imagination a little bit?
No, that wasn't the way it read to me when I was 10 anyway.
Okay, because I mean, like, if we look at fiction, we can just go, well, that's patent nonsense, you know?
But it wasn't presented as a work of fiction. It was presented as like an essay about this historical character.
Who isn't real?
I don't know. It was written as though he was.
Okay, it'll be interesting to see if I can find that.
Yeah.
It strikes me as utter nonsense. Like you say, there's Occam's razor, you know? The simplest solution is probably the one that it is. Coincidence.
Yeah. And I was really annoyed, and I couldn't express what annoyed me so much about it. And it was like, I think one of the questions in the workbook was, can you think of any other reason that two people might get a disease on the same day? And I was like, well, coincidence.
you know the meme, History Channel.
Yeah.
You know
the aliens guy.
The aliens guy with the funny hair.
Yeah.
You know the meme where it's just like aliens. It's so good. That immediately springs to my mind.
Actually, that's very appropriate here, isn't it?
Put a meme there for answering that question. But anyhow,
So the Fermi paradox.
Fermi paradox, and there's loads of other different solutions. Like, for example, we could be just alone. Like, that's one, and that might inform how you write your fiction in space. We could be like products of a simulation. Someone is running a simulation, and we just happen to be the only inhabitants of said simulation, which I find...
That's the same as the first one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I just find... yeah, that's true, but I just find the premise a little bit interesting, because I suppose that sort of thing engages with what is God, you know? And it engages with, like, a creator figure and how we define creator figures and things like that. So that could be an interesting thing. IO9, the website, did a big write-up on the most bizarre solutions to the Fermi paradox. It's worth checking out. There's a lot of ideas to be sourced from there.
There's a couple of related concepts.
Oh, like what?
The Drake equation.
Oh, yes. What is this? This is the thing, the probability of there being life, is it?
Yeah. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of meaningless. It's kind of ridiculous because it's basically every number that's in it you're going to have to pull out of your ass.
Oh, okay.
Like
right.
there's no rigor to it whatsoever. But that's kind of, it might be another thing worth considering as a creative impetus.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The other one is
Wait, no, hold on. Sorry, no, before you go on, you could do the opposite of the Drake equation. Like, if you're in a galaxy, this might be total nonsense, but if you're in a galaxy and it is known that there are a ton of aliens everywhere, like in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah.
And you are, say, wanting to venture into some uncharted region, you could run an opposite of Drake equation to determine what's the probability of not finding them. Because if you're like me, you don't want to find them. You want to find empty space to colonize.
The probability of finding them and the probability of not finding them is they're just the opposite of each other.
Yeah, but there's a different intent in why the equation is there. Yeah. You know, like in our universe, we have it there to want to find aliens, but in another galaxy, it could be exactly the opposite.
But you see, at least with that situation, you're starting off with where you know that there are other aliens, there is other life. With the Drake equation as it stands, you have no prior figures to build on.
Exactly.
It's purely speculative.
Yeah, exactly. But like you say, it can be really great for creative impetus.
Yeah, totally. So that's one thing. And the other one is, I believe it's the Great Filter. Now, it's been a while since I'm just going to Google this right here now. It's been a while since I've read this stuff, but it's in the context of the Drake equation. Like, if you're presenting the Fermi paradox as the talking point, the Great Filter is why we haven't met the other aliens, or why we're not seeing anything else. What is the thing that stops them?
Yeah, isn't that integral to the Fermi paradox? Isn't that part of the discussion?
Oh, I thought it was like a closely connected thing rather than being integral. Possibly it is integral.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'm basing this again off the Kurzgesagt video. They go into discussion about great filters.
No, I'm looking here. The concept originates from the economist Robin Hanson.
Oh, there you go. Huh.
Yeah. From 1998, so a good bit later than the Fermi paradox.
Do you want to describe this concept of great filters?
Well, just the Great Filter is the thing that is stopping us from seeing them, or stopping them from being available to be seen. Right.
Do you want to speculate as to what a great filter might be? In your opinion. Obviously, this is not fact, and we're just speculating.
I mean, I don't know. It could be that... give me a moment to think about this. I've got one great example from fiction, but let me think about this for a moment. All
right, while you're thinking, can I give you my thing?
Yeah?
Right, you know what the great filter is? What? Rampant disease when two aliens meet each other.
I mean, it could be something like they wipe each other out before getting there.
Yeah, there's they reach a technological singularity and they just destroy themselves. I think that is literally one of the great filters.
I mean, I think a technological singularity would do the opposite, but that's just me. My favourite one from fiction, anyway, is from Ultimate Marvel.
Okay, we all know how much you love the Marvel comics.
No, hold on. Are you referring to what I was saying earlier about the shared universe?
Yes.
No, I quite like early Ultimate Marvel stuff because it started afresh and it was quite well integrated. And as it got on, it got a bit stupid, but it was quite well integrated at the start.
Okay, backtracking, but that's okay.
Fight me in real life. In one storyline within Ultimate Marvel, the Great Filter is Galactus.
Oh, is Galactus a kind of like an omnipotent sort of like all-knowing, all-powerful thing?
No.
Okay.
So in the regular Marvel comics, he's like a huge dude who eats planets. And he's literally a giant person.
Oh, hang on. Is he's literally a giant person?
He is. He's this huge dude.
I don't know very much about the Marvel comics. Is that what the Silver Surfer storyline in one of the movies is about? That he comes to Earth to scout it for Galactus?
Yeah, Silver Surfer is the Herald of Galactus. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Cool.
No,
cool,
I didn't watch that film because I don't particularly like the Fantastic Four, and I think Galactus turns up like in a few frames at the end, and then they defeat him, which is stupid because he's like the coolest thing in the Marvel universe. But that's just me.
So hold on. Why are we bringing up a Galactus again? I lost my train of thought there.
So in Ultimate Marvel, in the Ultimate Galactus trilogy, it's proposed that Galactus is the Great Filter by Reed Richards. He's like, well, here's the Fermi paradox. For some reason, we're not seeing all the aliens, and the figures say that we should, so there's something stopping us from seeing them. What is that? Oh crap, maybe it's Galactus, because Galactus is bearing down on them at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
So Galactus eats planets before aliens get out to spread through the galaxy.
Which is kind of like, I'm with Galactus on this. Get rid of the enemy before you get all their diseases.
So that's my personal favorite example of a great filter, but that's another thing worth considering as well. When you're writing, consider the Fermi paradox, then consider the Drake equation, and consider those factors that he proposes, and then consider what might great filters be, what might be the things stopping people. Yeah, it's a great impetus for a story. Like I said, it could be a Galactus, it could be some overbearing alien race that's stopping anyone else from getting out or whatever.
Exactly, like a great filter is in by definition an area of conflict. Yeah. So and stories need conflict. So great filters definitely. That's a great idea. Can I give a brief mention? It's not really connected. Well, I suppose it is connected to what we're talking about. Can I give a brief mention to the Kardashev scale or Kardashev?
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that right? Kardashev.
I think it's Kardashev. Yeah.
There you go. So what this is just a scale that determines how advanced a civilization is. And again, it's useful when thinking in terms of like galaxy building, because it's nice to try and populate your galaxy with civilizations that are not all the same. They're not all homogenous. They have different levels of technological advancement.
Yeah.
So just really quickly to run through it, it's pretty boring doing a list, but I'm just to make sure everyone knows what I'm on about. You have potentially 5 types, and they're called type 1 to type 5. We as humans are a 0.73 on the scale. Okay? At type 1, so when someone becomes a 1, that's a civilization that can harness the entire power of one's home planet. A type 2 can harness the power of a star, so like with Dyson spheres and things like that. A type 3 can harness the power of a galaxy, so like an omnipotent sort of galactic civilization. A type 4 can harness the power of an entire supercluster, and a type 5 can harness the power of an entire universe.
I think after 3, Kardashev originally proposed the first 3, didn't he? And then the 4 and 5 are extensions from other writers.
Exactly, yeah. I'm adding them on just for the sake of completion. But yes, the original scale is 1 to 3. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of cool. I mean, like, you can kind of see these various types in action in the Star Trek universe, I think. Right. Because, I mean, like, there's a definite technological difference between, say, the likes of the Federation and, say, the wormhole aliens that built the wormhole.
Yeah.
And then from the perspective of the Federation, these guys are like gods, like literally gods on Bajor. So they would be considered like a type 3, like ones that have the potential to affect things on a galactic scale.
Yeah, well, they'd be certainly approaching 3.
Yeah, certainly approaching, definitely, yeah. Whereas, what would the Federation be? I'm assuming the Federation would be like a 2?
Yeah, they'd be probably again between 2 and 3, but lower than 2.
Lower than
Although,
down, yeah.
can they really... I don't think they'd have the capability to build a Dyson sphere.
Yeah, you see, nothing's ever mentioned about, like, the energy and things like that, but...
Like, there is a Dyson sphere encountered in one episode, but it's not built by the Federation. It's kind of an old anomaly.
I'd imagine, though, like, there's been, throughout the series, there's been, like, a couple of things about, like, mining an entire planet and things like that. I'm sure it's not that big a leap that they can, harness the resources of an entire star system. I would say 2, but that's just a feeling. It's not really grounded on any fact.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's nice to have different levels, you know? And there's definitely been some Type 1s in Star Trek, you know, where they beam down and away party to some planet that doesn't have a clue what phasers are and things like that.
Yeah.
So don't make everyone that inhabits your galaxy just homogenous. That's really boring.
Something about this about this scale makes me a little uncomfortable, though.
Go on, elaborate.
It's a very kind of functional, it's as though everything is just resources, you know?
Okay.
And as though, I mean, I know it's just a scale for how you frame a culture's or a civilization's energy usage, but there's kind of inherent in it, I think, the idea that it will be a good thing to be able to harness all of the energy in a planet, and that the planet is just there to be used, and that the solar system is just there to provide the materials to build a Dyson sphere, kind of thing. There's a sort of a very sort of interfere kind of aspect to it, and one that I'd feel a little uncomfortable about from certain environmentalist points of view.
I thought of this as well. I was thinking, if I was a Type 3, say, and I have the ability to harness the power of an entire galaxy, part of me would think that my society would be like, let's consider the ethics of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there could be a lot of like civilizations that could be Type 3, but make themselves Type 1, you know? Or just don't think along these lines as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bit hard and fast. But it's still, it's a nice like metric to gauge one's civilizations, just as a way of creating creative constraints.
Sure.
But that's a very valid criticism.
The whole thing about like the search for life is it's very focused on. I mean, we've only been able to receive radio waves for what, like 90 years, even that.
Yeah,
90
yeah,
years.
something like that.
So we've only been listening for 90 years. We haven't been listening to everything we could possibly be listening to for 90 years. We've no idea what like anyone might be transmitting on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anything saying that, there is none there because we would have found it by now, which I have heard people say, is ridiculous. Like, I mean, like, why would they even necessarily be using radio?
Yeah, it's also very kind of like homocentric. Is that the word?
Yeah, exactly. It's homocentric. It's based around what we would do is a kind of some sort of universal, and it's kind of following a sort of a kind of a Lamarckian idea of progress, that, you know, you have these stages, and the next stage, you know, you'll evolve so far, and then you'll get consciousness, and then you'll get tools, and then you'll go to space. Like, that's only going to happen if the ability to use tools becomes, first of all, is randomly mutated into a species, and then that it becomes useful.
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally. I making any of these sort of judgment calls based on our limited perspective is just silly, and it serves no purpose.
And I'd expect if we found something, it would be more likely we'd find some kind of single-celled thing or something.
Yeah,
like,
microbes.
You know, yeah, or like something analogous to lichen. And I suppose I'd agree with you there about transmitting, not exactly transmitting diseases and stuff, but I'd agree with you there that it would be very easy to upset an alien ecosystem by the introduction of foreign, say a more diverse human or Earth biosphere.
Yeah, there's huge ethical issues. I mean, there's even ethical issues over the idea of terraforming Mars, if that ever becomes a thing. Like, people are like, do we have the right to take Mars from its natural state and make it habitable? Why is habitable good or better?
A really, really good series that covers that in great detail is the Mars Trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson.
Yeah, which we've talked about before.
Have we talked about the Mars Trilogy?
Yeah, I can't remember where it came up, but we have talked about it. I'll link again. This is clearly seems to be a very, very good book. Bill has advocated numerous times in the past for this, so.
Yeah, he's a great author. That and what was the book I about the Bangsian fantasy? Years of Rice and Salt. Between that and Years and Rice and Salt, he's one of my favourite authors.
So I'll link in the show notes again for people who are interested. But yeah, there's a huge ethical thing when it comes to traveling through space, you know? And part of me thinks that we don't really have any right to infringe on any alien's planet, even if they are microbes, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not really too much worried about their rights. They're just microbes, but it would just be a shame to lose that data, to me. It would be a shame to lose that, like, wealth of diversity of knowledge of what is going on there.
I totally concur with that. It's a real tricky thing. I kind of wish that, I expect us to make contact with aliens at some stage. Like, I think it definitely will happen. I only wish that I can be around for that. As much as I don't want to die of diseases, it would be a really interesting time to see how humanity conducts itself. Very, very interesting. I don't have any faith in humanity at all, to be fair. Humans, we're not great half the time, so it will be very, very interesting. But unfortunately, I'd imagine I'm not going to be around for that.
You never know.
Well, unless bionic upgrades.
Maybe we'll all be subsumed into the singularity before then.
Maybe. What a joyous future.
Hello. My name is Bill. I am a fighter pilot.
That holds 3 Olympic medals in tiger wrestling.
Olympic gold medals, thank you, Edgar.
This is true, yeah. So I don't mean to to diminish your status as a tiger wrestler.
That's okay. Just don't do it again.
Okay, right. Let's do it.